we have the big news. Apparently, Drive to Survive, or the producers of that show on Netflix, the Formula One series, are looking at and are close to a deal to have the same style of series for the Tour de France. So not for a whole season of races, not for ASO's races. It seems to be just the men's Tour de France on the table for now. Velo News put out an article on this, sort of with some information they'd gleaned. The details: 8 episodes, 35 minutes long, on Netflix for release on May of 23. So that's competing with the Giro, Benji. RCS will be even more mad in May to build hype for the Tour next year. 8 World Tour teams involved: Jumbo, EF, Quickstep, Groupama FDJ, Ineos, AG2R, Alpecin, and Movistar. But my first question, Benji, do you think this is a good thing for cycling?
I think it's a good idea that we've got more assets or add-ons next to the sport that can drive viewership of the sport, and next to that, make it a bit more exciting for viewers to jump into that. We know that the F1 show has brought a lot of drama up and so forth in that sport, has also brought a lot of new audience to that sport, and as a consequence, we've seen a significant growth in F1 viewership over the last couple of years, and I hope that it's having the same effect on the cycling world right now. And I hope that it also has that same effect of being able to get a cyclist that is currently a leader to a more superstar version of themselves. They're more of a stardom than just a leader of a cycling team. I want rivalries. I want stuff like that. I want more drama in that sense. And I think this can add to that. And I think this can also be an extra add-on when it comes to the finances to teams. Now, when it comes to the finances, I do want to ask you a question. In total, it's according to Willerflitz, 8 million in total by Netflix to be able to do this, of which 1 goes to the different stakeholders in the project. So ASO is a stakeholder, France Television, and also the 8 teams. And those 8 teams would each get 1/8 of 500K. So in total, 62K roughly per team. Is that enough, knowing that they are basically the product?
It's just a nominal amount. That money is so small. I think the teams are doing this 99% because they want the exposure and because you don't want to be the ones left behind. Like, if I'm a World Tour sponsor and my team, I'd be like, you have to do this. You have to get. That's the point. And then maybe they're hoping that more exposure, then their sponsors will pay more. That's the whole trickle-down model. I would say I was surprised by that fee, because I know I'm one of the only people, maybe I think one of the first people ever in sports to buy, just an independent sort of company to buy race or sports rights for digital media, specifically for digital media. And the Netflix series is similar to that. It's not the live rights, it's the right to record, I guess, as well, which is a bit different. But yeah, I was surprised by the fee, if that fee is correct, because yeah, $250 to ASO. You might be wondering, the $250 to France TV, I think this is where the Tietema guys, I think, might have run into trouble last year as well. I don't know the exact legal arrangements, but I think France TV have some sort of exclusive right, they must, to record the race as the host broadcaster. And these guys from Netflix walking in with their cameras infringes upon that, I presume. So they got to get a cut. And that's why I think there was some legals, that's why it was a problem that what the Tietema guys were doing. Don't know whether they're going to reach an agreement this year anyway. But yeah, what about you, Benji? Were you surprised by that money? Is that why you think UAE aren't doing it?
I don't think that's the reason why UAE aren't doing it. I think there's a lot of things that are added to this, next to the fact that you've got cameras seeing a lot more that can also give pressure on riders. I think that's an effect that it can have. For example, we saw in the Movistar thing that pressure on certain riders or certain DS's social media insults towards people as a consequence of the project that they did. As a consequence, that can have an effect on the mental state of riders and so forth. I think certain teams want to protect that. Certain teams won't want everything behind the scenes to get known when they've got things that competitors, for example, don't have strategies or techniques to do better in time trials and so forth. And as a consequence, I think that's part of the reasons why certain teams might not want to do this. I think next to UAE, we're also seeing Bahrain skipping this. And I personally, for the first time in many days, I agree with Patrick Lefevre on this, where obviously it's wonderful exposure, but I believe that the team should get more of a cut.
Yeah, but they don't know. That's for, and that's sort of the Netflix model, isn't it? Isn't the Netflix model that they get new actors who don't really have much of a track record, and then they try and create a viral hit with them paying whatever their market rate was before they became superstars? It'll be interesting. I think this is what Lefebvre was sort of intimating was, yeah, we'll be on board season one, but if this blows up and is a success, it's going to be more than 62 grand for season two. I don't know whether Velon can, like, I don't know what Velon does, actually. I don't know what Velon currently do, but I thought this is the one thing where they could band the teams together and have collective bargaining. But FDJ aren't a Velon team. Most of these teams, though, are Velon teams. So maybe, I don't know if Velon are involved with it at all. What do you think about, like, I'll be honest, I got into F1 and I'm not really into F1, just a casual fan. Because I like the Drive to Survive series. I'm one of the target audience. So I know how effective this can be. Are you worried that they won't explain cycling properly? Or does it even matter? Or do we even bother doing that? Should we just make it entertainment, drama, etc.?
I think a combination. The simplicity of it needs to be explained in a simple way. For example, people need to be able to know how the Tour de France is won, that it's not simply, you win a stage and you need to win as many stages as possible and then you win the Tour. Nah, that's not how it works. It's time-based and so forth. Those basic things, but I don't think we need to go too in-depth into certain rules and so forth, unless there's like the scandal at the end of a stage. Then bringing up the certain rule by some analyst or journalist in one of those interview parts that they also have in the Drive to Survive series, that would be fun to hype up the drama around certain things. And I think that it doesn't need to be explained completely, but some simple things might need to be explained to get a new audience in, but it's probably going to be the visuals and the action and so forth that's going to get the audience in and not necessarily the way it works. So that's the most important aspect, I would say. And I agree. I'm also not the biggest fan of F1, but I'm also a casual fan because I started binging the Drive to Survive series during my Zwift rides the last few months. And I'm currently roughly in season 2, so don't spoil it. But I'm having fun.
I think, I mean, literally, I've built, my job is to try and make cycling, the video of cycling, interesting to people and try and create some sort of narrative when I've on the Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel, some angle to make this delayed use of the footage interesting. Obviously, I don't have the behind the scenes, it's the race footage. But yeah, I will be interested to see with what storylines they go with at the tour, because there's no Bernal, there's no access to Pogacar. They have access to Jumbo Visma. I will be, when this is announced, emailing, give them a little email, being like, "Hey guys, John, little Patrick Bro, LR producer, help out." Sorry, what storylines do you think they'll go with? Surely Rog v Pog Slovenia rivalry. That's low hanging fruit. Got to go with that, right?
Certainly that's low-hanging fruit. If Cavendish goes to the Tour de France, that's also an aspect that they could delve into. It really depends on how the race start list is, how the race is written, and so forth. Stories will automatically come out of that. Like last year, we had the crash in the early stages. That's one episode. If that happens again, which hopefully doesn't this year, hopefully. But I want to bring it back to a point you've made where UAE is not here. Obviously, the Tour de France winner of the last 2 years is not present and currently the favorite for the Tour de France again on paper, I'm pretty sure, based on the current odds, I would guess. And as a consequence, they don't have that rider. But if you bring it back to the season 1 of that Drive to Survive series, they also didn't have like the biggest one out there. Lewis Hamilton was not in there. Mercedes was not in there in season 1. Those riders riders as well, drivers, came in the later seasons.
Rennes.
And is it necessarily the end of the world that Pogacar is missing in this fast season? I don't
No,
think so.
no.
They just need to prove that it's worth for Pogacar and UAE to join in the second one.
And they've still got, I presume, the right to use interviews, the generic interviews that Pogacar would be doing after the race anyway, to add color for what he's saying. That's just
Yeah.
not stuff they've recorded. I assume they'll have some race footage. And I don't think Verstappen is in season 4 of Drive to Survive, which
Yep.
drops in a few days. So we'll see the effect of that. I don't expect this to be as big as
Yeah.
Drive to Survive. I think that's unrealistic. I think we have to understand that Formula One is 20 guys, all extremely wealthy, probably bigger egos, more drama, more glitz and glamour. It's F1, and cycling's a little bit more down to earth. That being said, in cycling, there's plenty of petty shit that goes on. There's plenty of stuff behind the scenes that people will not believe happens, and drama and shouting and tantrums. So if it's 33% as good as Drive to Survive, I think that's still a massive win for cycling. But as you can tell, we've talked about this almost longer than our Tirreno recap. As people in cycling media, I'm extremely excited for it because they just make the series and do nothing else. We get to talk about the storylines. We get to, when we talk about riders, they're bigger names now. So I think it's all good for us in the cycling media. And I guess we never go to the races anyway. So, let us know what you think down below. Are you keen to watch it? I think everyone that listens to this pod, that 100% of people will be watching it. But Benji, Zwift have announced today that they are the presenting partner of Paris-Roubaix Femme. It will be known as the Paris-Roubaix Femme avec Zwift. We know that there was the huge announcement last year of Le Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. Well, now not just the biggest one-week stage race on the calendar for women will be presented by Zwift, but now the biggest one-day race on the calendar, which had its inaugural event last year, won by Lizzie Dyden. There was incredible hype for it, and now it's back in its April slot, and we will see Zwift as the presenting partner. So great to see that Zwift continuing to support women's cycling. Thanks for listening. As always, thanks to Zwift, our presenting show partner of the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, and we'll see you with the doubleheader tomorrow. Ciao.